I'm going to start with pre-production, just because that's typically where we start dealing with virtual production. For us, it's been a complete flip of our workflow. I come from a feature animation background, and so to walk in and have a scene that's just this big master scene, which is how most virtual production tends to be done, is you'll have this big event, as we usually call it at Halon, and it'll have, say, 45 seconds or a minute's worth of action in it. And that's obviously going to be broken into a number of shots, but that's very different than the old workflow of saying, I know I'm going to have these shots and I'm going to start on this shot and then go to that shot and go to that shot. We've always kind of created these little mini scenes and then broken out the shots, but now we're working very much like you would on set. And so we go, okay, this is our action point, this is our cut point for the event, and now we're going to go in and lay in these cameras. So you end up having to create a shot plan just like you would for going on set, and we'll have to go and shoot those cameras until we get the takes that we like, and you end up with a ton of footage. Typically, we always thought in terms of shots. Now we have dailies, and we are literally getting all of this data that we have to look at, and that's kind of one of the other challenges, that we have so much more data than we used to because of that. But we have to weed through this and make sure that we're selecting the right takes where the cameras felt good and the action looked good from that angle, and then edit it together. So that's kind of the Previs side of it. Then as far as how that affects on set, is we're finding that when we do that kind of shooting responsibly, our shots are much closer to what they will and can do on set, because we're having to walk around in these environments when we're doing our virtual production just like they have to do when they're on set. And I think one of the great benefits of that is, without even thinking about following some of the rules of what you have to do with a real camera, we're already following them because we're doing it at the pre-production level. Well, it's all starting to blend together. Live action, you can go on a set now and they have versions of cameras that can see live action green screening like they did on the V series. I believe Zoic was responsible for setting up the Zeus system. And now you're getting this idea where virtual set production begins before they'll shoot. They'll show up on set with the actors, and they might be in a large green screen stage, and they can actually see the environment behind the live action actors while they're there. And I think that that's creating an interesting change for how DPs and directors are thinking when they go on set. That's definitely a new kind of bleeding edge thing, and we're not doing it everywhere, and there are challenges to doing that when you're on location versus on a set stage. But it's certainly changing the way people think, because now they can frame up shots in a way that they're seeing that environment, and I think that helps greatly. When you're dealing with things like creatures and characters, that's where the real challenges lie, because say on something like Battleship that I'm on right now, when we're looking through our Previs camera, I can see what the giant alien ship looks like that I'm supposed to be looking over. When the DP goes out in a helicopter and they're trying to see this same event, they've got to look at the Previs, which what we do is we do a delivery of both a QuickTime form that has the speed of the camera, the height of the camera, the distance to subject, so they can try to approximate that when they're out on location. But a helicopter has its own limitations. The pilot's going to fly the way he needs to fly. And so there's, anytime you get on set, they have to adapt to the live action scenario. And they have great challenges in really understanding scale differences for how big of a spectacle we might have in a shot at any given time. And I think that that's one of the things that is still an ongoing challenge. And we're going to see great advancements in that area, I think, in the next 10 years. I think creatively, there's kind of like two sets of tools for me that I think would help us a lot. One of which is the creative side, and the other is more of the data and technical side. On the creative side, I'm greatly looking forward to having cameras that are on live action that are automatically tracking. There are some that are doing that to a degree now, but it's not wholeheartedly accepted, and it's not not accepted. It's not wholeheartedly adopted yet in camera technology. But I think we might have a time in the near future where every camera is actually tracking via GPS, accelerometer, and things like that, and we'll actually have rough versions of tracks from every piece of data that's just connected to film or digital via metadata. And so we will receive a shot and be able to immediately throw elements into it without having to do the tracking process, because the camera did it right there on set. So that's one of the things I'm greatly looking forward to. As far as virtual camera side, especially during the pre-production, something I discussed with you earlier, I would love to have the ability to walk into any environment, be it interior or exterior, and have the ability to basically calibrate for the area that I'm in say 5 minutes with an active camera, and then have a virtual camera that I can pick up and it understands that environment immediately. So I can walk around and just basically be in a virtual environment as soon as I walk in. On the kind of technical data side, some of the things that I think we're really needing to understand better, and it's a challenge, and I know this is something that they've definitely learned a lot about on Avatar, is again getting back into the idea of footage versus shots. And I'm hoping that there will be more tools implemented in Maya and Motion Builder and any production tracking software that really deals with that idea of footage before shots, because anytime you're dealing with the visual effects side, as soon as edit decides that a shot is a visual effects shot, that's whenever it gets designated with a name and everything else. Before that, it's just time code and footage. Well, that's definitely one of the great challenges of what we do. One of the great things about Previs is being as new as it is, we have kind of had to adapt during a rapidly changing time of technology. You know, we've started in that time, and cameras are changing, people are shooting 35 millimeter 1 minute digital and other, sometimes on the same project, and so you're dealing with so many different kinds of data at any given time. And so one of the things you have to do with any kind of pipeline that you create within this industry, especially doing what we do, is create a modular pipeline. You have a hub where you have data, and people choose whatever they want for that data hub. For us, we're doing a combination of a custom written Python data structure and Shotgun, which I don't know if you're familiar with Shotgun or not, but it's a production tracking software. It's not particularly for asset tracking, but I think they're building that in. But they've been around for about 8 years now, I guess, and they're creating a web-based production tracking software. And the great thing about that is with Previs, we go everywhere. Sometimes we're at the director's office, sometimes we're at our own facility, sometimes we're in London, wherever we might be at any given time, and everyone has access to this production tracking. So for us, that's our modular piece of the package for tracking. Then for anything else, you kind of have to look at it and say, okay, I'm using Maya for this project, I'm using Motion Builder for that project, and being able to interchange them in and out. Then the other big thing, I think, is understanding that as Previs, we have to adapt to other people's pipelines. Like I'm working with ILM on this, and so on Battleship, and so if they have a certain way that they need to receive a file, then I make sure that I'm giving it to them that way instead of them having to adapt to us. They've been around for a long time, they're not going anywhere, and if I can make sure that my workflow to them is as good as it can be, then they'll want to work with me for one, but it'll also mean the data that I give them is more usable. And I think that's kind of the key for that entire question, is that whatever you do, you have to adapt to who you're working with very quickly, and it's definitely key to moving forward. I sort of fell into the business. It was not, I didn't go to school for this. I went to school, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, for painting and drawing. And I was going to be the next big painter. That was my focus. And my wife was an actor, and she wanted to move to LA, and so we moved to LA. And I ended up meeting this guy at dinner who was going to go up to San Francisco and work on Disney's The Wild. And we struck a great conversation, and I think it was 3 weeks later I was moving up there to be his coordinator / junior artist for Previs. And I ended up moving up there, and 9 months into it, they decided to move the project up to Toronto to work with Core. And I actually went up, and he didn't. And I knew the process so well because I started on day one that they actually had me be the Previs supervisor on it. And that was my first project in the industry. I had done a couple of small commercial things before that, but nothing anywhere near that level. And so I actually did Previs on that project for 2 years, and that was in 2003 to 2005. So this is pretty early in the game for Previs in general. And once I finished that project in 2005, I came back down to Los Angeles and started working in visual effects for a couple of years, but I really missed the Previs process in general. And that was whenever I got in contact with Dan Gregoire and Halon Halon Entertainment, and I actually started there as a supervisor, and since then I think I've worked on 16 or so projects for them. I think the most satisfying moment for me is when I present that cut to the director and they watch it for that first time, and I don't usually watch the cut with them when they're watching it. I usually watch their face, and I like to see that response, because you know pretty quickly if you got it right. And those moments when you see them smile, or you see them cheer for a moment, or they take a moment and they step back, and you can see they get really excited about the potential for what their film can be. And those are just those little creative moments for me that you just see that glint in the eye, and it's just so exciting. And I don't think anything will really feel better than that for what I do. It's a really interesting field. It's one of those things that I think you're going to see a crop of directors and filmmakers come out of our side, which are going to be a new breed, like the way that we think about film. And when you meet good supervisors in Previs, and the way that they work, and they understand that every decision they make has such an impact on that film, they really kind of latch onto that responsibility, and we love it. Like, I absolutely love those moments of knowing that whenever I kind of make this call and try to push something forward, and the director likes it or the DP likes it, and then we get to see like where the identity of the film will go. It's just a whole new way of making film.